Okay. All right. Hello, Internet. Hopefully you can hear us. I've been told that the Wi-Fi and the network here has had perennial connection issues. So I guess sorry, even though it's not my fault. But anyway, I'm going to talk about, from I guess a third-party perspective, about some ways to defend against these AI crawler bots. For as a, what do you call it? A full disclaimer, I've never met Giuseppe before. Didn't even know who he was until 15 minutes ago. No offense, he sounds like a great guy. I think a lot of what he said is true, and I agree with it. I wrote this not 15 minutes ago, so please don't construe any of this as I don't agree with what he says. There will seem to be some contradictions. Don't take them as contradictions. They're just my opinion, and everything works differently for each wiki. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and continue with what I was planning on saying. So maybe he mentioned this already, but I'll have to give my own background on this. So specialized AI crawlers have been scraping the web at scale for training data. But these days, they often ignore robots.txt directives, and they operate with hundreds of parallel requests to the same website at the same time. Traditional search engine bots, they prioritize the volume, they traditionally respect this robots.txt. They know they don't want to overwhelm things, and like for Google, they only need that page content like maybe once every few months, right? So they're not going to overwhelm your website. If anything, they probably have better places to put their resources at. But these LLM bots are way different. They are just like completely operating in a separate way. And all they want to do is just crawl every single thing. They don't care if they DDoS your website. And the worst part is they don't really care about what they're looking for. So like Google, for instance, they will only crawl content pages. They don't like going to crawl special pages. They're really smart about that. Whereas these LLM bots, well, if there's a link, they'll eat it. And this has produced really bad effects on the internet. Bandwidth usage has surged dramatically across the internet. AI crawlers have caused severe performance degradation and DDoS-like conditions on a lot of shared hosting environments. Apparently, one site experienced 30 terabytes of data consumed in a single month just because of GPT bot, or I guess poser GPT bot traffic. And then there are plenty of examples of independent site operators that face insanely high daily bandwidth costs. We have a lot of horror stories now about people using AWS or whatever, and they check their bill and they're like, oh, great, now I owe $30,000, right? And they're just hobbyists trying to, host their site, regardless of MediaWiki or not. So, I mean, this is obviously horrible, right? Just from like a moral, ethical perspective, like this sucks. Even at MyWikis, we're going to be honest. I think our customers have started noticing a change, and this change did start happening roughly later last year, but it's gotten just much worse since then. Select public wikis, they have just massive amounts of traffic requesting specific special pages. It's a nonstop war with many battles, and I'm not gonna lie, I've had sleepless nights over this. So, there are customers of MyWikis here, and I do want to say I'm sorry, but at the same time, please know we are trying our best. So, why would we want an extension to potentially solve this, though? The thing is that there can also be MediaWiki-specific interventions that we have to do, and the best way to do so is with an extension, right? You got to hook into that PHP code to do that specific MediaWiki intervention. The benefit of using an extension is you don't have to add additional layers on top of your web server. I mean, let's say, Joe Schmo just wants to host his wiki. Are you going to tell him, oh, by the way, now you have to install 2-3 layers of caching, Anubis? I mean, the activation energy is just too high. Like the cost to just start a wiki is ridiculous, right? I mean, when I was 9 years old, I followed a life hacker website, a guide to set up MediaWiki. That's how I got into it. You tell me I have to install Varnish and Anubis and stuff, I wouldn't be here today in this community. I would have given up. So that kind of stuff is ridiculous, right? I don't consider that as a viable solution for people who, you know, aren't operating at the scale of MyWikis or what's it called, fandom or whatever. Sometimes, you know, Cloudflare is not possible to use, like, or they don't filter it the way that you want it to, and sometimes you're still left with traffic coming in, and then you're like, oh, well, it's all coming from Cloudflare IPs, so I guess I'm just screwed. Some ways that I don't think work too well. Inspecting user agents. I know that does go against what Giuseppe just said, but the thing is they can still be easily spoofed by any bot. And sure, you can use those 7 magic lines, but that doesn't change the fact that eventually they're gonna get smart and they'll be like, let's change it to something different. Fail to ban, you should still use it. It's great to filter out bad IPs, but it doesn't work too well when you have a large number of IP ranges being used. Nepenthes generates an endless sequence of pages that simply go into a tar pit. But as Giuseppe mentioned, you don't want to ruin the environment, right? That's going to cause these servers to, you know, keep using electricity and resources, and it's not going to help yourself either. It's just going to cause more scraping of your website. So it doesn't make the problem better; it just makes it worse. It's like the logic of let's lay off people from Microsoft so that you know, we can do more with less. Well, no, you can keep the same amount of employees, number of employees rather, and they can do more work with Copilot. So anyway, sorry. Self-hosting is meant to messing up spam bots, but they won't necessarily reduce traffic. And then Varnish and other caching. I mean, you know, caching is great, but the thing about Varnish is it caches frequently visited pages. When you're talking about spam bots, they visit a page one time, this obscure combination of page, like, you know, special page. They never visit again. What good is Varnish going to do in that case? If anything, it's going to drive your memory costs up. So what are some defenses that you can use before MediaWiki begins loading? You can use a WAF like Cloudflare, but again, you can't use it for some websites. Anubis is a nuclear solution. You know, it does like a proof of work thing. I think the anime reference that Giuseppe made, that's the logo for Anubis. I don't know if anyone necessarily got that. I mean, hey, it's still a solution. I think for the Wikimedia Foundation, it's not a feasible solution. That's fair. But for smaller wikis, it is a great solution, right? Other reverse proxies, you can use them. You've got things like banning classless robots and edge uniques, which are solutions by the Wikimedia Foundation. But these are like the latter, edge uniques, it requires it's meant for the Wikimedia Foundation where they're operating reverse proxies. So again, not very suitable for smaller wikis. We have existing MediaWiki solutions like Lockdown, which is a great tool to prevent an anonymous user from accessing your wiki, or accessing certain actions on there. It requires, though, individually configuring these settings in a deliberate manner. So you still got to go in and do your research. It's not meant to be an out-of-the-box MediaWiki firewall. It's traditionally meant to just lock stuff down from users that you don't want them to see, like humans. And it doesn't support more in-depth filtering of requests for diffs and things like that, because it wasn't originally a use case of it. And who can blame Daniel? He made a great extension. It's just, you know, he didn't have a crystal ball. So, but it's a great thing to start with, and actually the solution I'm going to propose is heavily influenced by the approach that Lockdown takes. Stop forum span is a highly effective denialist, and it's even used by the Wikimedia Foundation. But it was only meant to prevent non-read actions. But chatbots, they don't necessarily spam your wiki with edits. They spam it with views. So that doesn't help at all. We want to then look at how do we identify these patterns of what these abusive requests are. So we look at MyWikis, we have access to our web server logs, right? We have so many wikis, we have a whole tranche of data. And the ultimate evil we've noticed is what's called crawl permutations. And I don't know how many people know how a web crawler works, but basically you start somewhere, and then you're like, ooh, a link, and you add it to your backlog of pages to crawl. You've processed one. When you're processing it, you add the other links that you see on there, and then you know, add it back to the queue of what to crawl next. Well, when you have pages like diff, right? I think James used the term like, you know, arbitrary diffs. Yeah, well, you have arbitrary diffs. You have, you know, n choose 2 combinations. You have n to be reasonably large number, and all of a sudden you're looking at millions of diffs and millions of page crawls. Of course it's going to overload a server, especially if that bot is just, you know, relentlessly making those requests. So that's the problem. And the pages that we see most often abused are these listed over here. So yeah, these are the resource-intensive actions. I've named the special pages on Semantic MediaWiki and Cargo the ABCD special pages. That is what I have noticed is the worst. So how do we fix this? Well, we need to create a specific solution, right, for MediaWiki. And so I've created an extension called Crawler Protection. It's available on our GitHub right now. Once we have time, we can move it to Wikimedia source control. And it's meant to be easy. It's not meant to have any config variables. You just install it, and it works out of the box. And maybe it's a little nuclear, you know. You can no longer view history or what links here or special recent changes linked. But I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even know. I didn't even know the first 2 special pages existed until this problem happened. So, yeah. The easy solution is you log in and make an account. And ChatGPT, these crawler bots don't do that, right? So that's why it's a little nuclear. You have to log in, but it's a great way to tell them to go away. And then the great part about that is these, when you do the checks and you see like, I don't have a screenshot, but basically if you go to one of those pages on a website that has it enabled, it'll say like access denied. It says tell you to log in. That's generated before the call is made to the database to do those computations. And so it saves a lot of that computational power and makes sure that, you know, your server is not being overwhelmed. So we do want to continue to add further defenses to this extension. This is going to be open source. I'm really looking for community feedback. Thank you very much if you can. I'll continue to monitor our logs at my wikis on our part and see what those freaking bots come up with next. Looking forward, yeah, so we're nowhere near done. We've started a Wiki Anti-Botnet Resistance Task Force. The acronym is WART. We decided that would be better than the Artificial Intelligence Defense System. So there's a page on MediaWiki.org. yeah, you're starting to notice it, right? Handling web crawlers. This is starting to become a really good resource. People are starting to add things on top of it. But yeah, let's facilitate public wikis to be alive again. I didn't want to say make wikis great again, because they're already great, but we really just need to stop this relentless spamming. I think that's it. Any questions? Rich.
How is bot defense for wikis different than bot defenses for any other web application?
So Rich's question is, how are bot defenses for wikis different from bot defenses for any other web application? I think in some cases it is similar, but like, you know, the web application firewall, you know, use of Cloudflare, that kind of stuff to just prevent like abusive IP addresses, that's the same. But resource-intensive pages, right? Some pages, they just don't have anything resource-intensive, so that's not a big deal. They just add a firewall to the abusive traffic, and that's done. But MediaWiki is split between pages that you just load from the database, and you're like, bam, that's the text, great, versus pages of like, you know, make a diff, or you know, the special recent changes linked, right? Some of these, sorry, I went to a school where we were taught algorithms and computer science, so you know, you can get like O of n squared, you know, or O of n cubed kind of computations, and that is literally, you know, quadratic or cubically increases the more stuff you deal with, right? That is not a problem that's faced by every website out there. I would say WordPress probably doesn't even face that. MediaWiki is so powerful that we all know, right? But with great power also comes the responsibility of dealing with those computations. And then, what else, I guess? So we do need to have wiki-specific and MediaWiki-specific mitigations and procedures to deal with that. What better way to do so than to do it in an extension where we can directly deal with MediaWiki's headers and operate in a MediaWiki environment. Yeah. Aaron?
Yeah, have you looked into what's causing the change from, say, a logarithmic or linear to some type of quadratic?
So Aaron's question is, have we noticed any change? Well, how do we know that it's like changed from like, you know, quadratic, linear, whatever, sorry, logarithmic to potentially quadratic? There hasn't been a change in that per se. It's the thing is like no one has really done this before, right? Like, I'm trying to find an example that doesn't offend anybody. Let's see. Like, what's an example of something we can't have because we can't have nice things?
World peace.
Okay, see, I'm trying to go with not controversial, please.
Open source everything.
No. No, I meant the reasons behind why it's caused.
Open source
Flying cars.
Flying cars. Yeah, so we can't have that because, you know, I mean, we can't even have planes flying to Newark right now, right? So if we had flying cars, people would be not able to, you know, control where they go. We can't have that nice thing. But flying cars, they have been around. There are prototypes of flying cars, but we just can't have them because no one has yet seen how bad they can get in a big environment. Now we are testing, we are in a new era, right, of the internet, the
Uncharted
AI.
waters.
We are in uncharted waters, and finally we've seen a case where you have these pages that you've made, you know, in good faith, and now we have to deal with it. Just like we all, oh, here's an example. Us, the visitors here at NASA, right? We could drive, you know, to some random place here in Armstrong Test Facility and ruin it for everybody, but we don't. But you see these bots, they're the ones who decide to like, ooh, let's drive off to the zero atmospheric chamber or whatever. Sorry, what is it called? The zero?
It's a misnomer on Google Maps. It's
Okay.
Space environments complex.
Space environments complex. Great, yeah. So let's not do that until 5:30 today with Rich. Yes, Megan.
So at WikiGG, we kind of assume that any hit on recent changes linked is an LLM bot. We've surveyed our users a bit, and no one uses that. So that's like, and we leave the link there because it's basically like we want.
Like a honeypot.
Yeah, we want it as a honeypot.
Okay.
I'm wondering if you agree with that assessment, or so we know that it's very used on Wikipedia. So like a lot of human users on Wikipedia specifically use that tool. But for us, it's no humans use it. I'm wondering if other wikis also feel the same way about recent changes linked, and is that something you've investigated? And
Yeah, so to restate Megan's question for the online community, she's saying that at WikiGG, basically no legitimate user uses special recent changes linked.
Yeah.
That it's only these crawler bots.
And that's the related changes.
Yeah,
rather
and
than
related
the
changes.
sidebar related
Yeah,
changes.
yeah. And so she's saying that no one except bots are using it, and they're using it as a honeypot. And she's asking if that's been the experience of others. At least at MyWikis, you know, we recently rolled out the access denied for people who are using that. We haven't used it as a honeypot yet. That's a really good idea. But we've had no complaints so far. Maybe they don't know how to complain, but still, like I've never even used this page before. So yes.
Oh yeah, and that was when we surveyed our users to see if anyone was using it. The response was, "What is that?"
Okay, so Megan's saying when they surveyed the users, the response was literally, "What even is that?" And that's my response too. I was like, "This is a thing?" And you know, we're a community of MediaWiki experts here, right? Like, you know, I've been using this for 15 plus years, and so I'm also just like, I don't know what this is, but this sure as hell cannot be real users because no one is going to be going there and be like, ooh, let me change, see this change, this change, this change. Never met anyone like that before. Never. So, yeah. That's a great point. I think we should explore that further, actually. And with the thing about Wart is, yeah, I hope that we can all join on that channel and just share stuff, and if not that, then at least add to handling web crawlers, because I really like the honeypot idea. Yeah. All right, anything else from YouTube?
Yeah, we have well,
Do you want me to just read it?
okay, yeah.
So, comment or
question from
question
Giuseppe.
from Giuseppe.
Oh, okay, comment from Giuseppe.
So, he says, on the approach that you took, are you clamping down on expensive features access? Are you clamping down on expensive features access? Are you introducing throttling for view actions, or are you doing both?
The question is whether we're doing throttling of user actions, whether we're just clamping down on being able to use resource-intensive actions, or both. Mainly focusing on resource-intensive actions at the moment, because throttling, the use of it, I feel like it's a slippery slope to go down that, because you're like, okay, so how do we count, these users? Okay, let's make a database. Ooh, now you're having the ability to overwhelm MySQL again, right? I was thinking for that kind of stuff, probably better to leave it to stuff higher up the food chain, like WAFs, like web application firewalls, fail to ban, things like that. Fail to ban. I mean, it should be used, right? But if you're counting the times a user uses it, that's based on what IP it is, right? And it doesn't work too well either if you have a large number of IPs using it. So that was my thought on that, but happy to hear a different perspective on that. And if you have a different perspective, the best thing to do would be to add it to the extension. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. And if you don't know how to add to an extension, well, I have good news for you. Later today, I have a talk about vibe coding and how you can do that in MediaWiki. So, yeah. Cool. Anything else? Perfect.
We have one more question from the internet. This is maybe outside of your area of knowledge, but do you know if AI scraping, cost of AI scraping is decreasing, or are these scrapers well funded?
The question is whether the AI scraping is getting cheaper, or is it well funded, or whatever. Didn't someone mention? I think they're not here at the conference, but excuse me, workshop. There's no conference. I think they're mentioning that some like TV box sets or whatever, some IoT devices in Brazil were being like hijacked and being repurposed for scraping. There's a lot of shady stuff going on in this world. It's really sad. So I guess you can consider that cheap because it's free. You're stealing stuff. I don't know. It's really sad. I don't even want to think about whether it's cheap or not, because clearly people are doing it, and whoever does it either has the ability to hack or they're well funded by VC money or something. I don't know. So, yeah. Cool. That's it. Thank you all for letting me talk while sleep deprived. And with that, I think the food